Hey guys, here we are, the Quiggin Out MMA Podcast. It's going to be episode 27, and I'm so happy to be able to bring on, now I can't even talk, guys. That's how excited I am. The one and only Daniel Straus, former two-time Bellator featherweight champion. So good to see you, man. How have you been?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm just, going through life's grind and just doing everyday things.
So I'm really excited for this, and for anybody who doesn't know, going all the way back, I want to say it was one of two events, and I can't remember which one, but it was either Bellator 72 or Bellator 94 that we first met in Tampa. You were actually cage side, and
Yeah, because Aguilera fought that night.
I had a business card in my hand, and I actually did the palm trick where I slid you a business card.
Yeah,
And I thought I was the
yeah,
coolest dude on the planet at that moment because I'm like, it actually worked. I was like, for all I knew, you
yeah.
just threw it away afterwards. But um, I
I mean, I
never,
took
th-
it, looked at it.
I never thought that something as simple as that would, turn into the friendship we've had over the last 9 years now.
Yeah,
It's
many
been,
conversations.
yeah, absolutely, and the amount of the stories I've heard, the trust you've, the kindness of your heart, right? Really, because most people don't know you that way. But I won't get too much into it. But you're a really great dude. So I'm really happy to have you on here.
Appreciate it.
So I'd really love to hear.
Thank
I
you.
mean, it's been a year and a half since we've seen you fight. So what have you been up to?
Well, the two sides of the sword. You know what I mean? As far as fighting, since that fight, I've just been waiting. I've been waiting to get surgery done. I've been waiting to get you know, my neck worked on, and outside of that, just sitting. I'm held up, but I just need to get the surgery done. But outside of fighting, not too much. I mean, just the hustle and bustle of everyday life. Trying to find a job, trying to work, trying to pay bills, and go through everyday struggles.
And it's kind of sad to hear that you're trying to find a job right now, being a professional fighter.
Yeah,
And and I know it's not a knock on anybody, but I know when we talked back in 2019, you elected not to do the surgery. You finally found somebody who could fix you, and you showed, in the fight, the comeback fight, that you were there.
yeah.
You were able to
That
still
was
compete again.
right.
So
That's the thing. Yeah, I can still fight. It wasn't about. See, the thing with the injury is it wasn't that I can't compete. You know what I mean? I can still compete. It's preferably I should have this done because throughout the longevity of my career that I've had, and then the motorcycle accident, and that's the thing. A lot of people are under belief that this injury came about because of motorcycle
mm-mm.
accident, which is very untrue. You know what I mean? That's one reason why it's been a big deal with Bellator and trying to get help with them because the insurance is like, oh, well, it's a motorcycle accident. And it's like it's not. I've been dealing with this problem with my neck for years, from you know um, years, and it's been documented. So it's just one of those things where it's frustrating because it sucks to be here where it seems like you're being forced in a certain direction that you necessarily have given everything you've given for it to be, to either walk out the way you want to walk out or continue to perform how you want to continue to perform. So, yeah, to be here really, it's, it's life.
Yeah, and I mean, you're not a spring chicken when it comes to fights. I mean, just looking at what you've done, 34, 35 fights, depending on who you ask. I mean, you've gone through a lot, And I can understand why you've been dealing with a neck issue for a while, and it's so frustrating to hear that, like you said, they're just pointing it's the motorcycle accident. Yeah, that probably brought it more to light, but it did really wasn't the cause of it. And I know that from years of talking to you. So
Yeah. Well, actually, it's funny because I don't really, I kind of went dark and haven't really used my, like, social media so much lately. But, hey, hit that door for me. Hit the door for me. I don't really use my social media so much, but before the accident, there's a post that was put on my Instagram where you seen where me and Desmond Green were going at it, and I went to go Brandy, and he kind of tucked, you know what I mean? And it looks as if I was knocked out. Well, what actually happened is when I Grandied, I Grandied on my neck, you know what I mean, and I lost all feeling throughout my body. So I was fully conscious, but nothing, you know what I mean. And that was prior. That was probably almost a year prior to that. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's not something that's been new. You know what I mean? When I fought King Foster in Arizona, in I think the first Bellator tournament, we were dealing with neck injuries and stuff like that. So yeah, it's been there for a while.
and that's crazy because for anybody without Google in front of them, that Kenny Foster fight was 10 years ago.
Right.
Like, yeah.
Right.
Listen, man, every time I look at your record, it doesn't matter how many times. I know how many times you fought. I know how ridiculous it was. But I did it again. And I looked at your first 11 fights. And your first 11 fights took place in 2009. Your first 11 fights.
Yeah. I was a workhorse, man. 11 fights in a year. Like, and it's such a different sport, man. And that's what, like, is so weird for me. You know what I mean? Like, fight Emmanuel Sanchez. We had a moment where I laughed. You know what I mean? I told him I was so pissed off at him because when we fought, and after, he won fair and square or whatever, he got up and shook my hand and said, "Bro, you're a legend. I've been watching you since high school." Right? And I was like, I'm like, fuck, I'm thinking in my head and shit. But it goes to show, like, it, the sport has evolved so much from when I first got there, you know what I mean? Because when I got there, to get on the scene wasn't, hey, let me just put up these couple fights in the amateurs and then let me go turn pro, you know what I mean? And get on one of the biggest scenes of Bellator or UFC or whatever it may be. You know what I mean? Mine was let me go and work my ass off so that I'm known. And that's what I did the first year. You know what I mean? I went all up and down, Midwest, Chicago a whole bunch, you know what I mean? Kentucky fights, New Jersey. We just went and fought whoever was out there to fight. And that's how the game was.
And I stress and I challenge somebody else to find me somebody who had that many fights within a single year other than you. Because, I mean, if you really look at the record, your first 7 fights, you go 4-3, you run into Pat Curran, which is a dirty name in our house, I know. But then you win.
Not really, man. We got good bad blood. Well, I'll say that. We have good bad blood.
Well, yeah, for sure. And, I mean, honestly, you win your next 12 fights after you fight him. And, your next 3 losses come to 2 people. And that didn't come until, like, further on down the road. So, I mean, really looking at it, you really are a very underrated fighter in the division. And I'm not just building you up because we've been friends this whole time, but looking at your record specifically based on merit. Go back to when you beat Marlon Sandro for the featherweight, the Grand Prix. Or they were calling it tournaments back then, but it's still a Grand Prix. Curran gets hurt, and you're like, so I want to fight. I don't care. Just give me a fight. Just let me fight Alvin Robinson. And they were like, are you sure?
I remember that.
And you beat him, and then November for you has got to be the high point.
And I was hurt that fight. I got hurt that fight. I actually had pulled my groin.
Ooh.
I think it was like a week, 2 weeks before the fight. I pulled out like a week before the fight. And I was nervous all on the simple fact of him being, jiu-jitsu specialist. It was close to my hometown, you know what I mean? And it was the fact that, like, yo, we can do the fight. You know?
Yeah, so, give me the fight.
Yeah.
And then you look at, going statistically, November is your best month as a fighter. Because that's when you beat Curran and you beat Pitbull, both for the title. I will never forget that my neighbors, I'm pretty sure, were about to call the cops on me when you beat Pitbull, because I was screaming in the house. Because I know, we had just hung out, we had just gotten together, and I just saw that look in your eyes where you're like, I'm not letting him beat me. Like, I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, there's a thing about Pitbull, man. Shout out to him. Hats off to all that he's done. But pound for pound, when it came down to it. And even the fights that he's won against me, there is nothing that anyone can tell me that, like, he's, like, I have his number. I know how to beat him. I am not scared of that man. You know what I mean? And I've walked through him so many times. Only fights that was, the last fight, he had the submission, great game plan. He didn't fight me. He kind of stood back, let me do my thing, and he called me how he spoke. Great game plan. First fight, same thing. Dog fight, you know what I mean? Like, came down to it. I gave him fair square. Of course, the second fight, I beat him down until he caught me again. You know what I mean? Third fight, it was the same thing. I'm gonna do the same thing. Got in his face and just beat him up. So, yeah, I've always just felt with him like, I hit harder. I felt like I outworked. I could outwork him, and I've always felt like he was just another fighter in front of me. But that's the thing that's special about him. He's gonna find a way.
Yeah, he's gonna find a way. And we look now, somebody who he's got some history with, or his family at this point. With Michael Chandler just making his debut last weekend, finally ending up in the UFC. I'm not gonna lie, it's not something I ever thought I would see. I never thought I'd see Chandler in the UFC, and I never thought I'd see Dave Rickles leave.
I didn't, like I said, I didn't get to see the fights, but that, let me say this the right way. I'm very proud of Michael for what he's done, because he's said something that people have always looked upon, that we've always tried to say. Here, especially being a Bellator fighter, you know what I mean? Like, those guys are never good enough. This is not a company that, like, you wear something here. And we've always screamed, yo, we throw hands over here. Just because y'all had a, concept and branding and all that, and, whatever the waters might be. For him to get to that level and then continue to show that, hey, this is what we do. Mm-hmm. This is everything that we've always done, and not just him. I'm just a fighter that was here or here or here, you know what I mean? And stop making it always this, branding, where it's, oh, you're only the best if you're one of these, because that's not true.
No. And I believe that, 100%, because you look at, guys like when Hector Lombard came over to the UFC, like, Hector was on a tear. I think he was on like a 25-fight win streak, something ridiculous. And he just never really got to that level of the UFC. So, of course, everybody said, well, he was fighting bums, this or that. And he fought some crazy dudes in that time. And then you had Eddie Alvarez come over, And
then it's kind of the same thing. And that's the thing, too. Like, these guys aren't trash. You know what I mean? Hector Lombard is nowhere near trash. Eddie Alvarez is nowhere near trash. You
No.
know what I'm saying? Like that is their legacy again speaks for themselves. You know what I mean? Look at Eddie's fight before he even even got to Bellator, let's say. You know what I'm saying? So it's like it's good to see how much the sport has evolved. Uh,
Yeah, and it really has, but I like what you said about the branding. But more specifically, when I really look at Bellator's homegrown guys, um, obviously Eddie kind of comes to mind because he did get built up through there. Chandler, Rickles, and yourself. You're really the four horsemen I would look at that were born through Bellator. You got to Bellator. You got to Bellator a little bit later. I would say later in your career, but later in your fights, just because you had freaking 11 fights in the first year. But ever since then, you've stayed relevant, you've stayed at the top, you've held belts, you've done everything you've needed to. And I feel like Bellator did a good job of promoting that versus where lately a lot of, they were pulling in a lot of old UFC guys.
right. Um, I've always, I can say this for them. They've always shown me love, and they've always did, you know, good business in as far as with their homegrown fighters building them up and whatnot. As far as like what they could do for us or whatnot. You know, seeing guys like Eddie Alvarez grow from there, seeing guys like Zip Chandler grow from there, seeing Pitbull grow from there. I mean, these are guys that have been there for years.
Mm.
When we were fighting after Team Mom or Team Mom, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's good to see the careers evolve. It's good to see the people involved, the bodies involved, and the stories. The stories are always good.
Yeah, and I love that you brought up stories because I'm gonna talk a little bit. Like I said, I remember, when I met you at the Bellator event, and then the first time we were gonna set up a meeting because of this.
Oh,
And I remember I said, "Do you want me to meet you at your house?" And you were like, "Hell no, I don't know you." And you're like, "Let's meet in the parking lot." And I was like, "Okay." And that was the old ATT, and it was a Sunday, and they were closed.
I remember that.
And
Yeah.
we went over and we went to Brew's Corner. And like we were talking about, like the football game was on, the Bengals and the Bills, but I just remember being blown away that at the time, I'm like, pretty sure you were a champion or you were right about to be in a championship fight. And it blew me away that nobody was like, holy shit, it's Daniel Straus. Like, no way. And I just remember you pacing back and forth, getting up and down, and the waitress was getting nervous every time you did it, watching the game.
Right.
But I was like, nobody was like running over, like getting autographs. And it blew my mind and it made me sad because I'm like, do you guys not know who this is? But
Yeah, I've never been that. But
I was going to say, but that's not how you are.
yeah, and that's exactly what I was gonna say. I've never been that guy. I've never. Here's one thing that I'll say this. When I first, and this goes back to the 11 fights that I had that year.
Mm-hmm.
This is true. When I first started, I was playing for this guy named Rod Housen. He owned the gym. And I was fighting. I had lost my first fight, and I had started to win. And everyone's telling me you should go. You can make a bunch of money. You can go to UFC. You can do this. And we had got into it because I told him, I was like, yo, like, I don't want to be on TV. I just want to fight and make money. And he said to me, well, you have two options. You can either win and everybody know you, or you can lose and nobody knows you. And it's always stuck with me. And so throughout fighting, I always wanted to be that. And again, it has. We can definitely say it's hurt my stock. You know what I mean? We can say it's probably not benefiting me as far as like making money or whatever. But I've always wanted to do my thing without having to go somewhere and have to hide who I am. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people do want recognition. A lot of people do want, the fame and whatever. And all that is it. You know what I mean? Having a bunch of friends and all that's cool. But I just never wanted to be that person that was, you walking around somewhere and oh, boom, look at him. You know what I mean? We don't have there's, next thing you know, 100 people in front of you, that. And don't get me wrong, I love my fans. I've always loved my fans. It feels really good when you go somewhere and someone does notice me and it's like, hey, yo, Straus, know who you are. You know what I mean? Like, it feels good. Someone acknowledges the hard work I put in. But I don't need it every day, all day.
And I love that because that's a very strange way to look at fighting. Breaking it down to the core of a mixed martial artist, your goal in life is to compete. It's to test yourself. It's not the fame. It's not. I wish it was the fortune, but we'll say.
Right.
But realistically, like, so in that sense, and I'm gonna ask you a weird question that I can't believe I'm about to ask, but were you relieved when you lost the title?
No, I wasn't. Only because I never felt like I was, an A-list celebrity or anything like that. And the pressures of having the title wasn't. My thing with losing my title is how I lost my title.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I fought Pat Curran, won my title. They wanted me to fight him again. Fine, let's run it back. You know what I mean? And then I have my first bad weight cut ever. You know what I'm saying? Where I have to cut my dreads off. And
Was he say, yeah, they cut the dreads off?
Yeah. An amazing fight until he catches me with 10 seconds left. And, there goes that. So, yeah, that's a sour ending to, having your title. And then the second one is, you have this guy that's up and coming, Pitbull. Like I said, I feel like I can run through this guy. And we had that first title fight. It's close. Like I said, run through him, kick off with 10 seconds, just like I did with that Kern. Then I had the third fight, run through him, and catch the title. Only for the fortunes of what happened. It's like, I go out there and I perform. But the backstory to that is, if you remember, we had Hurricane Irma.
Yep.
And we were shut down for like 2 months or something like that. We were shut down for a long time. And they wanted to still have this fight. You know what I mean? That's the fight that they were marketing. And I never really got to train properly for that fight. I didn't get to, you know what I mean? But I still went out there and did what I was supposed to do. And what I've always been, ready to do, go fight. So it's just how I lost my title.
Yeah, I guess it would be who you lost it to. You look and there's not a lot of people. So first of all, you had 4 fights with Pitbull. 4 fights.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody, like, nobody else has had a 4-fight, series like that where it was something you wanted to see. It wasn't like, okay, this guy's beat this guy 3 times. I don't want to see number 4. Like, these were competitive fights every single time. So, I mean, looking at it that way, you've got 9 losses on the record, and Pitbull, Pat Curran, Pitbull, like, Pat Curran. Like, 6 of those are those 2 people. So, I know that sucks, and I know I'm bringing up all this shit. I know.
It does suck, but, like, that's part of the game. That's the part of the game that I come from. You know what I mean? These are now rivalries and that I'm going to talk about for years to come. Because now people are thinking of, you know, McGregor doing this or that, or the Aldo fight, or then him doing this. That's the legacy, or that's where it has grown to. Whereas when I had rivals, we had rivals because we dogged it out from you know um, AA League to World Championship. You know what I mean? Like we we've been seeing each other for a long time. I never forget the first time I met. I have a picture in my phone somewhere from the first time I met Pitbull, which actually happened to be at that fight in Yuma when I fought um, Kenny Foster. He fought that same night. So it's like that goes to show like where again like where it's going to, because it's my rivalry with him. I didn't think it would be what it was.
And it's
Like you said, 4 fights.
like you said, it's a legit rivalry. It's not a fabricated one. It's not a we built this up. We built this up.
Yeah.
We threw a dolly at a bus. I don't know who did that.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
Listen, man, I got into a whole conspiracy theory argument about that the other day. And if I bring it up now, we're going to be talking for hours. So,
Yeah.
I'm never glad when somebody loses. I was happy to see Dustin win last weekend. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen. But
No. I did see a clip of that, and it was good to see him. And it was good.
what I love is that when you break down that fight, it's a little exaggerated, but it was good versus evil. You've got a guy who runs charities and does all this stuff for his community versus the guy who just can't seem to catch a break when it comes to women, scandals, punching old guys in, bars. So, yeah, for me, when I saw Dustin take that first good punch and he shook it off, I went, we're going to have a good fight. But
I don't know. You said something that just jogged my mind. We were talking about earlier about what you're doing, like the little podcast stuff. And I've always kind of wanted to get into the mental, because I don't know McGregor.
mm-hmm.
I don't know him whatsoever. I wonder what his mental is, because of some of the antics, the antics that he's done, and how he built himself up, and look at the mental health of a guy like Justin Poirier. He's come from the gutter. He's fought his way up. He's, like you said, does charities. You know what I mean? So it's kind of something that I've always enjoyed. We have that thing where each fighter is different, and everyone only sees us. Well, I can't say everyone, but our viewers only see us as who we are being shown as.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? We're being shown as this guy or this guy. You know what I'm saying? And that's how we're marketed, which is how we get paid, which is what it is. But sometimes I wonder how much deeper it goes than that sometimes. You know what I mean?
No, and you have to understand, like, I'm a psych major. Like, I have a bachelor's in psychology. The fight science or the fight mentality fascinates me. Because you have guys who, where CTE is clearly apparent. Where there are issues outside the cage, whether that it's substance abuse, whether if it's mental capacity, or if it's just somebody who's just a dick. Why are they the way they are? Trust me, I'm all there for that, because you see some of these fighters and you guys can go one of two ways. You look at, they've got the whole thing with Spencer Fisher that came out recently. A lot of fighters where they talk about, and I'll never forget, MMA Uncensored. It was a show on Spike TV years ago.
Yeah, I remember.
they did a segment on Gary Goodridge, and Gary was like, after you guys leave, probably not going to remember who you know that you came by. Somebody's going to have to
I
show me
remember.
this. And
Yeah, I remember watching that.
but he said if the UFC showed up tomorrow and said, "Here's 30 grand, we want you to fight in a week," I'd do it. And I'm like, I don't know if that was stupidity or if that was just the fighting spirit, just never giving up, never letting go. Because again, you see guys like Chuck Liddell who have those hard falls,
Yeah.
and you're like, how do you
And,
tell one of the greatest light heavyweights ever stop fighting? Like, who's that person
yeah,
who's like, hey man,
yeah.
so
You're done. You know what I mean? But it's also like I said, it's who we are for fighters. You know what I mean? And sometimes it's not even the the hard hits so much as the maybe the lifestyle choices. You know what I mean? Like, okay, let's take Court McGee, or even like you were saying, Ian McCall. Like, these are guys that had well-known addictions. You know what I mean? Prior to making it successful, and that's what maybe led them to be successful. You know what I mean? So it's the mental part of fighting has always interested me. You know what I mean? Like, what was it about this that made this guy do?
yeah. And do you look at it and say, well, the reason he acted that way is because he gets punched in the head, or do you say
Not all the time.
he gets punched in the head because of the way that he acts? Like, you know,
Very much so. You know what I mean? Like, it's such a two-sided coin, because it's like, all right, is he getting punched in the face because he's crazy, or is he crazy because he's getting punched in the face? Like, it's
and
not.
he likes it, yeah.
Yeah, it's not one. As simple as that. It's really not as simple as that. So
No, and it isn't, and they're really, I think right now, there's a lot of studies being done, and there's a lot of things going on in the background that aren't really public, but there's a lot of work out there that's working to help fighters, that's working to help mental longevity, because you can't be fighting when you're 50. I know you would probably still do it if you could. You would not care. Um,
yeah,
because I know you. If somebody was like, "You got to fight tomorrow," you'd be like, "What weight
okay,
class?" I'll do it. Okay, okay.
yeah,
Um,
I'll be there.
yeah.
I'll be there.
And so even like
One
the
week.
the weight cutting, like you said, cutting your dreads, like that's crazy. But you did what had to be done.
It's for me though. Like, again, everybody's thought process is different, and for me, at where I was at the time of that fight, I'll never forget. It was like we're in the back, and Jordan comes in and tells him like, "Yo, if you don't make weight, like, you're not fighting." You know what I mean? And we're stripping you for the belt. You know what I mean? And I'm like, um, I was just like, "Yo, like, what the fuck?" You know what I mean? Like, that's crazy. Like, at least I would still fight, or get stripped, whatever. But like, it was something crazy about it. But I remember just like telling them, "Yo, cut part of my hair up." You know what I mean? And they're like, "Well, why would you want to do that?" I'm like, "I can't run. I've already fainted down the steps. I can't move." You know what I mean? Like, if it comes down to my hair or providing for my family, you know what I mean? Now, granted, we're talking about me fainting and knowing damn well I have to go out tomorrow within 24 hours and fight the best fight of my life. You know what I'm saying? So it was like hair, or try to recover to let's do something tomorrow. You know what I mean? So it's just the thought process. It's the mental of all put ourselves through, or it's where we're at and where we're from.
Well, and was
And
that?
it is,
I don't think we've ever talked about the fainting incident. Was that ever documented? Did anybody know about that, or was that like?
I think it was. It could have been captured on film, but I think it was one of those things that was, tucked away and not talked about because it could have been very bad. You know what I mean? Like, but yeah, it was. I was running down the. I'm running down the thing, boom, pass out like bottom steps. Like I had tried to cut. Again, that's the only bad weight cut I've ever had in my career. Never have I ever. Now, don't get me wrong. I've had shitty weight cuts and weight cuts I don't do just like everybody
Yeah.
else. But I've never had a bad weight cut where I've missed weight on the first fight. I've never missed. That's the only fight I've missed weight on the first fight.
Not bad for 35 fights.
So, so yeah.
I know. I feel like I'm bringing up some stinging memories there because I see it on your face.
Yeah,
like,
bro.
Like you said.
Like I said, I don't. I kind of went ghost. I kind of went ghost on that side, which I really want to come and start appearing more and getting back to myself because again, like we said, the mental health aspect, like you know, once losing mentally and my mental health wasn't the best. You know what I mean? Being on the sidelines, dealing with the injury that it's not just affecting me for fighting, it's going to affect me for the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to just live the everyday life, has dealt me, blocks in the road that like people don't understand. People don't really MMA or sport or athlete or whoever. You know what I mean? Because it's like that's all fun and cool, but this person's still a person that has to do, this. I didn't make all the right moves in my career to make me a millionaire. You know what I mean? I didn't make all the right moves to, whereas, others do. So, yeah, it's just one of those things. So.
Well, and I really want to see you back inside the cage once you get the surgery. I know you talked about not wanting to get it. So obviously it's a necessity at this point. Like it's something that has to be done.
Well, yeah. Well, that's the thing. So there's another thing about that. The surgery that they wanted to do prior to the surgery that I need done now was a fusion,
Okay.
where they wanted to fuse my neck together, and that's the reason why I didn't have the surgery done at the time. Doctors now would like to do a disc replacement, basically a disc replacement, which is different,
Yeah.
So,
but they wouldn't have been able to
it
do
went
that if
from
they had not done the other thing. So
right now, had I did the fusion, I could never do the disc replacement, which is far better, surgery for me to have as an athlete than having my neck stuck in one place. So
yeah.
That's the difference of why I didn't get it versus why I want to get it now.
Yeah, and like I said, you're always exciting to be out there. Like you said, you're not the most famous person, and I don't think it's your fault. I just think you did exactly what you were supposed to do. You went in there, you fought, you left. You went in there, you fought, you left. Like, seeing you doing those promos, I remember you doing those promos and being like, he hates every damn minute of this. I could tell. Because you're like, I don't give a shit. I just want to fight. Like, that's it.
Well, there was actually, I've always, it's one of those things like, you if you imagine it, you'll do it, And I used to watch those, not 30 for 30s, but those ESPN or the what were they called? Can't remember what they were called, but it was like the lead up to the fights or whatnot. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I was watching like, all right, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to fight so long so they do a piece like this on me. And eventually that's what happened. You know what I mean? Fought so hard, and now they're doing these build-up shows about me for my fight, and it's like, that's not how I really want it. You know what I mean? I just want to, I'm tired of this. Don't tell me to say this cheesy ass line. Like, that's not who the fuck I am. I'm not gonna say, oh, I want to beat him so bad. No, fuck that shit. Let me go in the cage. You know what I mean? Let me put my hands on him and show you that I want to beat his ass. Like, I don't. Yeah.
Well, and it's so funny because again, knowing you for as long as I have, I'll never forget. After we had lunch, we went back, we did the interview in the ATT parking lot. It was about, I think it was about a year later, if I'm not mistaken. The new ATT opened up. I told you I was coming down, and you were like, "Hey, do you need somewhere to stay?" And it just
Yeah.
blew my mind because I was like, I met this guy once, but
Well,
that's
at
just
that
the
point, we talked, and like I'm one of those. I'm very friendly. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not one of those guys that wants to be in the dark in the corner. I want to, be friendly, but at the same time, like, I'm not gonna be staying out there looking like an ass clown. Like, yo, you know what I mean? So
well, and it's something that'll always resonate with me because, I've been doing this for 11 years. Talking to fighters, and between yourself and Ian, you two are the longest guy tenure guys I've been talking to, and you're always available. You're always trying to make it work and trying to, give me the time of day. And I know talking about that now, it's weird, but you're a friend of the show for a reason. Um, and it was so exciting to get you on because we've never done a video interview other than being in person. But people
yeah,
just don't
for sure,
understand
for sure.
that I will constantly drill this over and over and over. You guys are so much more than just fighters. You're good
Yeah,
people.
man.
You like to watch football. You like to have a good burger, like normal people. But
Yeah, yeah.
then you have the antics of guys like McGregor who just have that larger than life. And I try not to say his name. Damn it, I was so close. So close. But you try to have that, that larger than life, da da da, in the spotlight. I've got to have every second of every minute in the spotlight. And it kind of takes away from those, like I said, the good guys. The guys who are genuinely nice people
Well,
who just like to kick other people's asses.
yeah, yeah, and I'm kind of one of those guys that loves to, like, just, I don't know, you know what I mean? Like you said, I want to have my fun and not be in front of everybody's eyes, So, I'm gonna have my beer and relax. I don't want to have my beer and have to sign 1,000, autographs just to have that beer. So,
Well, I won't
yeah,
lie. I was happy about this one when you signed
yeah,
this. And I usually don't do that or bring it up, but honestly, man, it was reading about you in that book just made me want to meet you even more, or make me even talk to you even more because you did give a little bit of a way of yourself of who you were behind the scenes, and I know you don't like
hmm
that. You're quiet. The fact that you're doing this still blows my mind, and it's exciting because I'm like, we never like get to do this, but it's been years of this, so. Do we have a tentative surgery date scheduled? Are you like, what's the timeline
no.
before?
So here's what's been going on. So, again, after it, I don't know how long you want the story to be. I don't know
Go
how long
for it,
you want
man.
the podcast to be.
Go
So,
for it, man.
if you want to go back to the to what's going on, so boom. Prior to that last fight, um, I was where I fought Campos. I think it was Dick, right?
Yeah, like, that was the last
Um,
one.
so and it was a terrible fight, right? Now, here's the thing that
Oh,
people don't.
oh,
5 minutes before
oh.
going out there to fight, I I tripped on something. I went down.
No
Can you
way.
hear me? Yo, yo.
I
I'm
said,
here. I can hear you. I
okay,
can hear
yeah.
you.
all I heard you say was I
I can hear
tripped
you.
on something, and I'm like,
I can
what?
hear you.
You tripped?
All right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So right before going, no. So right before going out to the fight, I'm in the back warming up. I trip on something and I come down on my shoulder and my neck. As soon as that happens, they come in. They're like, "Hey, Straus, you're up next." Boom. So I'm like, I'm over here fucked up. And they were like, "Well, what do you want to do?" Again, same scenario. Like I said with the whole pitbull thing and the hurricane thing. I came here to fight.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm gonna do. And that's why I had such a terrible outing. And people are like, "Well, you're running all over the place." And what they don't know is I went down in the back and I could not feel or throw my, my arm, my shoulder. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, these fights have stories to them. You know
And I think
what I mean? Like
there's stories that need to be
fights are more
told
than
now.
just fights.
Yeah.
Like there's things that like go on in I forget what we were talking about when we get here, but yeah, these fights are more.
There's so much more to the fight.
The timeline.
Yeah.
And for my neck, the timeline for my neck. Yeah. Yeah. So the timeline.
I'm kind of losing you a little bit. There we go.
Getting back to that. So after that fight, we were in a position where, so we were trying to get those for the surgery done.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to get the surgery done, so until I can get the surgery done, I pay 50. Can you hear me?
It's kind of in and out. It's kind of going.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Well, it's cutting in and out, so I don't know what's going on. Let's see here. Hold on a second. We're going to try something real quick. Go. All right. Technical difficulties, guys. But, all right. So the timeline. So wanting to get the surgery done. Needing all the money for it.
All right. Timeline-wise, leading up to it, I just have to, come up with 50 grand to get the surgery and then I can go from there. But, I don't really have the funds to get, the surgery, so I'm just sitting on the sideline.
And is there a point where, so I'm not trying to bash Bellator here, but they're not paying for it, or is it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to bash Bellator either, but that's the sad part of, what we were talking about, you know what I mean? Because it's like this 50 grand to them is nothing, you know what I mean?
Yeah, 50 grand to us is a lot.
They've always been there to help me. I'm not saying that they've never done anything to help me or anything like that, but, we do so much in the sport to get to a point to where it's like, what have you done for us lately? And it's hard to do something for somebody when it's like, this is what I need to be done for me to do something for you.
Yeah. Well, and yet they look at it as a liability. Anybody would look at it as a liability because you have to have the surgery. Right. How long are you going to be out for recovery? But at this point, we've been out since September of 2019. I say we, like I've been out of it.
No, right. No, but that's the other part of it. I've kept myself healthy. I've kept myself in shape because I know I'm at the end of my career, but I also want to go out on my own terms. I don't want to be pushed out. I don't want to retire because I'm being made to retire. You know what I mean? I'm full within reality of, your body doesn't, this is a young man's sport. So, me, I'm always going to fight at the highest level that I can. And, my body's just not built for that anymore. So it's like, I really want to. I have 3 more fights on my contract left, and I feel like I can finish those 3 fights out with a huge bench. You know what I mean? But you know, it's one
Well,
of
and,
those things.
so say you get the surgery, you come back. Are we staying at 45? Because you looked amazing at 55 when you came back.
Um, yeah, I've always felt like 45 was my home. You know what I mean? I only fought 55 because actually, what happened was when I was coming back, we were trying to get we were trying to get the fight 45, and we had a couple people back out of the fight, and they're like, "Well, listen, if you want to fight, we can give you a fight at 55." And they had a couple people that was willing to fight, and so we signed the line, and let's get to it. So that's all that was. But I started my career at 55, and that's how I learned dealing with professional athletes. 45's always been my home. So if I ever, when I fight again, and I do say when I fight again,
I was gonna say
because
you
like I said,
changed it.
I'm
Yeah,
going
that
out
was
on my
good. I
own
want to
terms,
hear when.
even if it, yeah, yeah. Yeah, so even if it is when I'm 50, it'll probably be at 45.
And I like that because so many guys go up to reinvigorate the career. You've seen a lot more guys going down with the weight cuts being done properly because they kind of have to go down. When we talk about the days where BJ Penn was fighting at 55, he was probably walking around at 170. You know, 100.
Easy.
Welterweights were probably walking around at 185, whereas now welterweights are cutting from over 200 pounds to make that weight.
Right,
And let's
right,
talk about the fact that
right.
Anthony Johnson once fought as a freaking welterweight.
You know what I
That's
mean? Like,
terrifying,
that's a
man.
big dude trying to make one step. Yeah,
So, and I know he's
it's
coming to
crazy.
Bellator. I know they mentioned that. So,
I did hear that. I'm proud of that. That's what's up. You know what I mean? And it's good to see another, again, hard hitting guy that can just throw. He's another fighter. You know what I mean? He just loves to throw his hands, and that's what's up. You know what
yeah.
I mean? Like regular dude that just likes to smash people, and he's outstanding fighter.
Well, and yeah, and it's not so much as a UFC reject, I guess, where we look at it. And I'm not saying anything against him, but that's what a lot of people would say when people got cut from the UFC. They would go to Bellator, and it was a UFC reject. But you're seeing a lot more people now go to Bellator for money, which is very strange. They're going because they're getting a better contract, and it's something you never thought you would hear before. You're seeing
Well,
fighters, so many fighters
first,
leave.
let me say this. Does go ahead.
No, go.
Yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
It comes down to sponsors. The sponsors are where the extra pay comes from.
Yeah, when you're under a contract that's like under Iron Fist, and it again, one of the things that happened in my career, again going back to like what we were saying, I wasn't willing to leave Bellator to sign with the UFC because you know what I mean. Like, I don't want to get paid less for doing what I do. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? So Bellator getting new fighters, it's never been a reject thing. It's just been it's a business thing. People, like I said, we're all good fighters. We're all there because we can throw our hands. You know what I mean? But it's financially, it's also a job for us.
Yeah.
What makes the most sense? You know what I mean? Like, does it make sense for me to go over here and, you know, yeah, I might be fighting on the bright lights and doing all that, but after all that's done and said, you know what I mean? When I go home, what am I going home with? What do I have to show for? So that's what this business is.
And because you brought it up, was there ever a time that the UFC kind of approached you and was like, "Hey, we want you to come on over"? Uh, that
No,
you
no, it was nothing like that. It was nothing like that. Early in my career, actually, I got those were. Um, because I can't remember, a guy named Mike King was trying to get into like the UFC, and then they had the tournaments going on. And it was like, oh, but we can do this for this price. And it's like, yo, if I'm gonna be doing this, I'm not about to just. I think at the time it was like 6 grand. You know what I mean? Like fight for probably less than that, like 3 grand.
Oh
You
my
know, we want
God.
you to fight for 3 grand. Yeah, and it was like, eh, I'm sorry, I don't want to do that. So. Yeah, it was never one of those deals where it was like, yo, why don't you come over here or anything like that. Like, it was very different deal, but, yeah, I haven't had any conversations like that with him.
And I think that's a shame on their part, but I think, like you said, you're kind of Bellator through and through. Um, they made some comments on the pay per view about Chandler. About obviously they're not going to say how much, but they're like Dana White paid a lot of money to get him over here. I'm like, why do you need to tell us that?
Right,
Why? What? He wanted to prove
right,
himself. That's what he
right.
wanted to do.
Yeah, you know. And hats off to him. You know what I mean? Like, he's a very, very versed guy. He's very talented and smart. And, and when it comes to the business of it, that's where us as fighters, like, there's two sides of it. Like, we have to fight because that's what we love doing. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, this is our job. You know what I mean? Like, it's our 9 to 5. So it's complicated sometimes.
Well, and it's complicated because as the fighter, and I just years of talking to you guys, there's nobody to be like, hey, save your money. Hey, invest in something. Like, hey,
Yeah,
have a backup plan. They're just like, hey, fight this guy, make more money. And you're like, cool. And you just keep going forward.
yeah. Well, this isn't the NFL or the NBA or, what I mean? Shit. And hopefully it gets pushed in that direction, where we do have those guys that are, there for the fighters that are there looking out for their best interests, finding them the best contracts, finding them the best people to fight, and and not just having it as this guy's a beast, you know what I mean, and then sending him off on the way with whatever
Yeah,
to do
exactly.
whatever, you know,
Well, and I think,
because then you end up with go ahead.
no, go ahead. Because then you end up with,
The little lads, you know what I mean. You end up with people who get a shit ton of money that may never have had a shit ton of money that may not know how to spend a shit ton of money. Which I will say this: hats off to McGregor on that, making his money and making it work for him. You know
yeah,
what I mean? Again, like a lot of us fighters, we get a little bit of fame, we do our thing, we get a little bit of money, but we've never been able to work for ourselves. Now, there's fighters out there that have. I mean, you know, um, there's a couple guys out there that, whatever business wise, but
mm,
for the majority of the fighters, that if you can think back from 2000 to 2021, where are we?
and that's
Where are
that's
we in
scary.
life?
Because, like you said, there's no handler at the end of the day. There's nobody making sure. This isn't like. This is the only thing I'm saying. This isn't like the president where you get Secret Service for the rest of your life. You don't have somebody constantly, looking out for you. You know, if
Well, I'll tell you like this. I'll give you a best example. Best example. Where is Nick Diaz right now? What is he doing with his life? And why isn't he set up for the rest of his life? Because of all the great things that he's done for this sport for us to even watch and enjoy.
I can tell you why, because his name's not Conor McGregor,
Yeah.
and look at all these. Even going back, I like that you picked Nick Diaz because I think that was an unusual person. But go back and watch his fight with Robbie Lawler, like back at like UFC 44 or something, when he knocks Robbie out and hits
Even
him while
Lawler.
he's going down.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that change
Yeah.
of Igor Vorchenchkin, in Pride, when he hits the dude, he knocks him out, and he goes pop, 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 pop as he's going down. Like, to knock out Robbie Lawler back then was huge. Because Nick
It's
wasn't
crazy.
known for knocking people out. He wasn't known as a striker.
Right. Right.
Well,
And see,
and you have to think the marijuana ban, and now that they've changed what's an acceptable dose or what's an acceptable test result, I think that's what kept Nate
yeah.
away. I think, when he fought Silva, that's the funniest part. Silva's the one who tested positive, not him.
Right. Right.
So, I mean,
Yeah, it's crazy, man.
I'm a firm believer that, like, of all the drugs, we're gonna say drugs for the sake of this argument. I really don't care if a guy's doing pot. I really don't. Like, in that moment, as a fighter, steroids, huge difference. Huge difference. You're giving yourself an enhancement. And I was like, but if you smoked pot like 3 weeks ago and you test positive now, like, what effect is that going to have on your fight?
Right. Yeah.
What advantage did you
Unless
just get?
Right.
If you
I
see.
mean, I think it was stupid across the board.
Yeah. Well, if you see Nick, like, lighten up right before the fight, like, as he's walking into the cage, maybe. Which, I think
Yeah.
if anyone was ever going to do it, it'd be
Which I
Nick
would love to
Diaz.
see.
Hmm?
I said, which I would love to see. That
Oh, yeah.
would be, the best interest.
Well, I'm pretty sure Nate lit up in the crowd once, and the camera was on him, and they stayed on him, and somebody got fired that day. Because they were like,
Yeah.
shit,
Oh, yeah.
we can't show this. No, 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 no.
Oh, yeah.
And somebody was like, no, I'm getting
Yeah.
this. I'm getting this footage.
Hell yeah.
So,
He's a character, man. He's a good dude. I like him.
well, I've never got to talk to him, so maybe one day, but I heard he's an elusive one, just like yourself. So,
Very, very. More than me.
yeah,
More than me.
I've heard that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'll give
But that's that. Go ahead. My bad. Go ahead.
no, I was gonna say I'll give Dwayne Finley a shout out there because I know he got some time with Nick and like it ain't easy. So
Nah. Yeah. Dealing with some of us as fighters, like I said, goes back to like our chemical, like our brains. It's like who we are in general as people. You know what I mean? Before the fight and after the fight. You know what I mean? Because it's like there's a reason why he is the way he is.
yeah,
It may not be because he's on TV in front of millions of people, and maybe he doesn't want us to know the reason why he is the way he is. But I feel like maybe not knowing his life, maybe knowing how different our brains are working. You know what I mean? Like, and why could be helpful. You know what I mean? To the sport in general.
well, and like I said, Ian and I have been talking. Like I said, as long as you and I have been talking, and I know, he's been very vocal about trying to change. With the introduction of psilocybin and how it can have an effect on your brain and how it can help fighters and reform the neural pathways in your brain. And I know some neuroscientist is going to jump on here and go, you said that wrong. But they did a documentary. It was on Real Sports, like Brian Gumbel. And, they talked to Dean Lister and Ian, and there was a hockey player, which I can't remember his name for the life of me, but you talk to these guys and they're going, the hockey player was saying, yeah, I used to sit at home and wonder if I could hang from my rafters. Who was going to find me if I did that? And your brain just changes. And like you said, we're focused so much on the fact that your brain changes because of fighting, but your brain was already different before. I think Ian said something along the lines of, you have to be crazy to get in there and fight somebody and think it's a good thing to do. And it's just toes the line of where crazy is. What do we consider crazy?
Yeah, that's muddy waters right there, bro.
So, I will leave you on that note. Dude, it was so good to see you. Really had it, it was a fun time talking. I know we had some technical issues, and that just comes with, doing these things remote. So, the next time you're around, we'll definitely get together. I want to say you drink Jack and Coke. I don't know why I remember that. But on behalf of myself, Combat Press, we've got Fat Boy Jiu Jitsu.
Can
you hear me?
Yeah, but
yeah.
Jiu-Jitsu.
So Fat Boy Jiu Jitsu, Bertsos Bakeshop, Barba Cubano. It's my beard stuff, so I'll definitely have to hook you up with them because the beard oils are the greatest. Keeps it, from itching and everything else. And then, of course, I'm representing my good buddy Dusty Grant, who had me on his show a few weeks back or a few months back. I don't even know how long it's been. An amazing musician, so if you guys check him out. But really, Straus, thank you. It's been a long time. Like I said, it's the first video interview we've done like this, distance. And I really appreciate everything you've done. So, Matt Quiggins, Combat Press, Quiggin Out. Yeah, we'll definitely do more, man. I miss you, brother. Peace.
All right.